Jon Snow, the last hero Westeros deserved. Welcome back, everyone, to the channel where fantasy meets strategy and nostalgia fuels our digital adventures. He was born in secret, raised in silence, and forged in war. He was a bastard, a brother, a wolf, a dragon, and when Westeros stood on the edge of destruction, it wasn't a king, a conqueror, or a crowned ruler who saved it. It was Jon Snow. In a land where heroes die young, and villains rule for decades, Jon Snow stood apart. He didn't seek power. He didn't want the throne. He wanted only to do what was right, again and again, even when the cost was everything. This is the story of Jon Snow, the last hero Westeros deserved. A man who sacrificed glory for honor. A warrior who walked away from crowns, and into legend. A bastard in Winterfell. Jon Snow's life began as a lie. He was raised as the illegitimate son of Eddard Stark, Warden of the North. But unlike Ned's trueborn children, Jon lived in the shadows of Winterfell, tolerated, but never fully embraced. He bore the name, Snow, a title given to bastards in the North. He watched from the sidelines as his siblings were groomed for greatness, while he grappled with rejection, particularly from Catelyn Stark. But in this coldness, Jon grew strong. He bonded with his direwolf, Ghost, a creature like him, quiet, loyal, and out of place. He trained harder than the others. He listened more. He questioned everything. And most importantly, Jon carried the Stark values in his heart: honor, justice, loyalty. Even when he believed he didn't truly belong, he carried himself with more Stark nobility than many born into it. The Wall and the Watch. Longing for purpose, Jon joined the Night's Watch, a centuries-old brotherhood sworn to protect the realms of men from threats beyond the Wall. He believed it would be a noble life. What he found was hardship. Thieves, murderers, outcasts. A place of exile, not glory. But Jon adapted. Quickly, he rose to become a leader among misfits. He gained the trust of Commander Jeor Mormont. He displayed bravery, compassion, and principle. And when he ventured beyond the Wall, Jon's world changed forever. He met the free folk, wildlings, once considered enemies. He fell in love with Ygritte, a woman of fierce independence. He began to see that sides were illusions. That good and evil did not wear uniforms. That freedom meant more than just banners and walls. Jon's heart was torn between duty and love, loyalty and truth. But still, he chose the hard path. He returned to the Watch. And ultimately, he watched his brothers betray him. Stabbed, bleeding in the snow, left for dead. But death was not the end. The man Who came back. Brought back by the Red Priestess Melisandre, Jon awoke not as a man reborn with divine arrogance, but with doubt. With pain, with loss. He had seen death. He had felt its silence. But instead of retreating, Jon chose to act. He executed his betrayers, not out of vengeance, but duty. He stepped down as Lord Commander, but was soon thrust into another war. The North was under the thumb of Ramsay Bolton, a sadistic tyrant. And Jon, reluctantly, led an army to retake Winterfell. The Battle of the Bastards was brutal, bloody, legendary, and when the dust settled, Jon had not only reclaimed his ancestral home. He had won the loyalty of the North. Not by birthright, not by claim, but by courage, by sacrifice. A king Who never wanted to rule. When the North declared Jon Snow the king in the North, he was stunned. He had never craved power. But power had found him. Jon tried to use it wisely. He worked to unite the Seven Kingdoms against a greater threat, the White Walkers. The dead were marching, and they did not care about crowns. He bent the knee to Daenerys Targaryen, not out of weakness, but necessity. Unity was the only way forward. But in doing so, Jon set a chain of events in motion that would change everything. Ice and fire collide. Jon and Daenerys fought together. Against the Night King. Against the long winter. Their dragons soared. Their armies clashed. And in a moment of peace, love bloomed. But Jon learned the truth. He wasn't a bastard. He was Aegon Targaryen, the last male heir of House Targaryen. The true heir to the Iron Throne. It shook him to his core. Everything he knew was a lie. His father wasn't Ned Stark, but Rhaegar Targaryen. His mother was Lyanna Stark. He was the Song of Ice and Fire incarnate. But Jon didn't use this truth for power. He told Daenerys. He stood aside. He remained loyal. Yet slowly, she changed. The Queen of Ashes. The battle for King's Landing was won. But the price was everything. Daenerys, filled with fury and grief, unleashed dragonfire on innocent civilians. In that moment, Jon saw not a savior, but a tyrant. He had pledged himself to her. But he had also sworn to protect the realm. Tyrion's words echoed in his mind. Love is the death of duty. Jon Snow made the hardest decision of his life. He confronted Daenerys, in the ruins of the Red Keep. With one final kiss, he plunged a dagger into her heart. She died in his arms. And with her, died Jon's last hope for peace. The cost of honor. Jon didn't flee. He didn't justify his actions. He waited to be judged. He knew what he did. And he accepted the consequences. Rather than war, a council of Westeros's leaders decided on compromise. Jon would not be king. He would not be executed. He would be sent back to the Wall, an exile for doing the right thing. Jon did not protest. He had lived too many lives. Lost too many people. Ygritte, Daenerys, Robb, Ned. His honor had always come at a price. Now, he would live the rest of his days in silence, in solitude, beyond the Wall. Or so the world thought. The true last hero. The term, last hero, is whispered in Westerosi legend. A man who once walked into the cold, alone, to find the children of the forest and end the long night. A man who united people, endured sorrow, and fought death itself. Was Jon Snow the hero? He never called himself one. He wasn't born in a castle. He wasn't loved by fate. But again and again, Jon put others before himself. He united wildlings and northerners. He saved the realms of men from the Night King. He killed the woman he loved to spare the world. He never wore a crown. He never ruled from a throne. But he ruled where it mattered most, in hearts. What made him different? In a realm filled with ambition, greed, and treachery, Jon Snow was something different. Where Joffrey ruled with cruelty, Jon ruled with empathy. Where Cersei deceived, Jon told the truth, no matter the cost. Where Daenerys saw destiny, Jon saw danger. Where others desired power, Jon desired peace. He never lied to win favor. He never killed for gain. He never abandoned the helpless. And because of that, people followed him, not out of fear, but out of love. The North crowned him king. The wildlings called him brother. The Night's Watch honored him. And the realm owes him everything. Beyond the Wall, Jon's story didn't end at the Wall. He rode north, past Castle Black, past the ruins of war, into the wilderness, alongside Ghost and the free folk. Not in search of glory. Not for battle, but to live, to breathe, to feel snow without fear. To be himself, at last. Maybe he found peace. Maybe he found new battles in the frozen wilds. Maybe he still watches, waiting, guarding in the shadows. Because true heroes don't need statues. They don't need songs. They only need to stand, when no one else will. A hero, for all time. So why was Jon Snow the last hero Westeros deserved? Because he reminded us that greatness isn't measured in crowns. That honor means doing what's right, even when it destroys you. That love is beautiful, but sometimes, duty must come first. That true leadership means carrying burdens you didn't ask for. He endured betrayal, torture, war, death, love, loss, resurrection, rejection. And still, he stood. He didn't want a throne. He didn't want power. He wanted peace. And in a realm torn apart by ambition, that made him more than just a hero. It made him the hero. The legend never dies. Jon Snow may not sit on the Iron Throne, but in the hearts of those he touched, he rules forever. The last hero didn't wear gold. He wore black. He bled for the living. And he vanished into the snow, like the myth he became. Thank you for watching. If Jon Snow's journey moved you, if his quiet strength, his painful choices, and his deep humanity spoke to you, like, comment, and subscribe.